Good morning and welcome to your Financial Empower Hour. This is Jason Cryderman with Great Lakes Investment Advisors. I have an awesome guest in my show today, Tony. Most of my viewers right now are thinking, wow, look at that beautiful face on there. That's just not Jason and Tony we get to look at today. You get to
Right.
look at one of the best estate planning attorneys, at least in my eyes anyhow, here in the mid-Michigan area, Miss Chrysa Milholland, who's with Wiler Law Group. And so today we're going to have an awesome show for our listeners. You may want to pull the car over again, put it in park, get out the pen and paper and get ready to take some awesome notes. For my viewers out there, you're probably doing the same right now. Take time to take good notes of today's show. Again, though, if you don't have time to take notes for the show and you're just going to listen as you drive or listen as you're doing things around the house, feel free to always listen to our shows again on replay. You can go back out to our website and find our past radio shows. We're on our podcast is on every major podcast channel. We're on Apple Music. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. You can always go out and listen to our shows. And anytime we have guests, Tony, you and I always talk about it, how it never fails that our phones are going to ring off the hook for the next 3 or 4 days after the airing of the show. And Tony, it's never because you and me. When it's just you and me doing a show, we get 1 or 2 calls. But when we have awesome guests on the show, like we do today, our phone, so we listeners, viewers, we understand it. We know it. It's awesome. It's okay. And it's normal. Give us a call. If you have questions or concerns about what you hear on today's show or question concerns you didn't hear, but you'd like to pick the brain of an estate planning attorney, please, by all means, give us a call. That's the whole purpose of having a guest. And so, Chrysa, thanks again for being a guest on our show. Welcome to your Financial Power Hour.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for the nice introduction. I think we have a great show today for everybody.
Yeah, we should have an awesome show. We talked before the show a little bit we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk really today kind of about some of the myths and then the realities of probate court, estate planning, nursing homes, all the uglies, all the goods and bads and uglies out there, right? But the reality is, Chrysa and I truly believe in if you have a plan, if you're proactive and you try to approach and plan for these things ahead of time, kind of like the tagline of the book, Tony, plan for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yep.
If you have a plan that you're preparing ahead of time for yourself, your spouse, your loved ones, generally when those negative things happen, like a sickness, an illness, a death, things can be easier. The more proactive you are, maybe the more preventative, just simply having a plan and working with the appropriate professionals, in your lives when it comes to that, whether it be an estate planning attorney, a fiduciary advisor like myself, a CPA, or someone versed in tax law. So that's kind of really what we want to talk about today, Tony, is some of the goods, the bads, and the uglies when it comes to estate planning and probate court and nursing homes.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing and important topic. I know I really wish I'd listened to this show a number of years back and we'd talked about this then because of everything I've been through with my parents and my grandparents. So this is so important. It's so important to have all your ducks in a row when it comes to this topic. But first, I thought maybe today we would just focus in on the Tigers and the Twins. See how the sports world was going.
So we can definitely start off there, Tony. How would you like to start the conversation? You go ahead and lead.
Right.
Is it going to be a similar conversation or different when we talk about the Lions and the Vikings?
Pretty similar at this point. Yeah, pretty similar. The Detroit's doing a little better than the Twins. We've struggled a bit, but we're on a roll. I think we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, it's think about baseball is one of the longest seasons, right? I mean, you can go from the highest highs to the lowest lows and everywhere in between. I think they play 2,000 games. It's just crazy.
It is crazy.
It's amazing. But yeah, the Tigers really started off. They're started off really hot right now. They're doing great. So again, they're on a roll. The wheels could fall off the bus at any time. And the Twins, boy, if they're on a run right now, they could ramp up and play a really high caliber ball and be right up there with the Tigers or even above us.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Our pitching's a little weak. I did get to go see a game though, and it was great. So,
did you? What game did you go to?
They played the White Sox, so it was kind of an automatic win. I knew I'd get to see the Twins win.
So you kind of cherry pick what games you go to. Is that what you're saying, Tony?
It just worked out that way, but yes. So that's fun. yeah, I really enjoy, I talk to you, and you got to have Carson on again. We'll talk sports with your son Carson too.
Yeah, we very well might. Now that he's coming up towards the end of school here, we only have about a month left in school. And, all of my listeners and viewers, they love it when I get Carson on the show, especially when Tony and Carson go back and forth and they really banter each other pretty good. They like to razz each other, banter each other. And Chris, the last time I had Carson on the show, he put a friendly wager out there to Mr. Tony Shore. And Tony, how'd that bet turn out for you?
Not so good. The Detroit Lions beat my Minnesota Vikings, so but that's good. I'm Carson's great. We like to trash talk just a little bit with each other since we support different teams. Chrysa, do you follow baseball at all or ever go to any games?
I have gone to some Tigers games. Yeah, I do. I mean, my husband certainly follows it more than I do, but
Sure.
like to.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, you guys Detroit has a lot of great teams right now. I mean,
We're lucky for a change.
Yeah, we are super lucky. No, we're right. That's great. I mean, you think about like the situation our Lions are in. I remember, Tony, you and I talked about this on the show months ago, but I remember as a child, I went to a Lions game with my dad and my grandpa, and this was at the old Pontiac Silverdome. And looking around the stadium, there had been half the fans in there were wearing brown paper bags. Now, I also aged myself there because when you go to the grocery store, you don't get brown paper bags anymore. But back in the day when you got brown paper bags, I bet half the stadium was actually wearing brown paper bags over their head with their eye holes cut out. And I was looking around the stadium. I said, Grandpa, who are all these people with these bags on? He said, well, those are Lions fans.
Yeah.
Meaning we were so embarrassed to admit that we were Lions fans that the reality is people wore bags on their heads.
That is funny.
But now, I mean, our Lions are just crazy good. Tigers are really hot right now. The Pistons didn't go too far in the playoffs, but wow, what a season they turned around. They started the season, I will say pretty dismal, and they turned around a season and became a very powerful basketball club. So we're pretty fortunate right now. Our Michigan teams are doing pretty good, and let's just hope things can continue.
Hey, let's keep talking basketball. My Minnesota Timberwolves are in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't even caught up on that series at all. How's it going?
Yeah, good. We won the first two rounds of the early finals, and so the preliminary finals, and now we're going to the Western Conference Championship. I think the first game's Tuesday night. So
okay. So tomorrow night. So recording the show on Monday for viewers and listeners. By time you see the show next Sunday, the Timberwolves will have played at least two games.
Yeah,
at least two games more. So hopefully, Tony, when our viewers and listeners are taking in this show, hopefully they're reflecting back and saying, "Yeah, we got a couple wins. Tony got a couple wins for the Timberwolves."
I'm hoping so. Yeah, we've looked good in the playoffs so far.
Good.
We're going to get into our topic here in a minute. I mean, this is a big one. I mean, we're talking about probate court, nursing homes, estate planning, how you can plan for these things. And there are a lot of myths about this, and people have ideas set in their minds about how this works or whether it's good or bad, or how it's paid for. So, and what they need to do to plan for it. So I'm glad we're going to clarify this. And Chrysa, you're the perfect person to have on to do this. You've done estate planning for a long time, which incorporates this. And I know, Jason, you work this into all of your plans and talk to all your clients about these topics as well, making sure they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed. That's what it comes down to. But before then, Jason, we do need to take a break here in a couple of minutes. Do you want to give away some more copies of your book during the show? I have to ask because we give away a lot of copies. We've given away a lot of copies in the last couple.
Yeah, you've done a great job with that, Tony. I've mentioned it many a times that I used to have another host on the show before Tony, and they didn't give away the book. They said, "Oh, it's a great book. We could talk about it." And then when Tony brought it to my attention one day, he said, "Hey, if you don't mind, Jason, I want to offer to give some books away on your show." And the phone rings off the hook, and we've had to order 2 or 3 different orders again and again and again. So I think it's awesome, Tony. It's the reason Dad and I spent so much time to put this book together was simply to share 22 years of real life experiences kind of in the trenches, so to speak, how we've met a lot of families, how we've met a lot of investors and clients and help them, whether it be with their estate planning or their financial planning or tax planning. income planning, risk planning, whatever that might be. And so I love it, Tony, when you give away copies of the book on the show. So go ahead and let's give some more away in today's show.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? The book is so good. And you actually mentioned the subtitle earlier. What's the subtitle?
So, Empower Your Retirement is the name of the book,
Yep.
but the subtitle is Plan for the Best, Prepare for the Worst. And
I
if
love
you think
that.
about that tagline, think about everything in your lives. For my viewers and listeners out there right now, just think about your family life, your career. I mean, everything we do. If we can plan for the best but prepare for the worst, we are really we're set for all circumstances, and hopefully we're going to be able to capture the best that we can, and we're going to be able to deal with the not so good and the worst when it comes our way. So again, being prepared, having a plan for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yep. And again, the book is Empower Your Retirement. It's great. You wrote this book with your dad, and between the two of you, you have many years of experience with this. So listeners, if you're one of the first 10 people to call Great Lakes Investment Advisors, just call the office, the staff there, leave a message if you don't get anyone, or let them know you heard about it on the radio show and you want a copy of the book. Again, that's just call 989-835-7203. That's 989-835-7203. You can also fill out a contact form at greatlakes.investmentadvisors.com. All right, and we're going to be right back with more of your Financial Empower Hour after this. Welcome back. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. You are listening to your Financial Empower Hour, and I'm here with our host and our very special guest, Jason Cryderman, and I'm here with Chrysa Milholland as well, our special guest. Chrysa, great to have you back on the show, and Jason, I know you have a lot of questions for Chrysa. We might as well jump into it.
Yeah, let's get right in. Chrysa, thanks again for being on the show. For a lot of my listeners and viewers out there, you recognize Chrysa's face. You definitely recognize her name. We've been very fortunate to build a relationship with Chrysa and the firm she works for over about the last 15 or 20 years. Chrysa not only has been a guest on my show, this is, I think, her second or third time being here, but she's also spoken at a lot of my live educational events I put on here in town, and she'll be speaking. I think we have one coming up in July or August.
Yeah,
I think we have the
do.
calendar. So it is always a great opportunity. Again, Dad and I really, when we started our business 22 years ago, we realized we could be really good at some things, but we want to be kind of master our field and try not to be the jack of all trades. And so we realized, well, there's a lot more out there to families. When we talk about their financial planning, they need estate planning, they need attorneys, they need tax planning with CPAs. So we did a really good job over the years building a network and building allegiances with these other professionals like Chrysa and her firm. So it's awesome to have you on the show again, Chrysa. Let's jump right into the topics we want to talk about. You and I talk to our clients day in and day out about the goods and bads. And we'll talk more about, I guess, the fear and the scare that a lot of even other professionals out there, but a lot of people just have in their mind two really huge scares. And that is probate court is horrible, and nursing homes will come and take your last pair of socks. I mean, everybody thinks that those are the two worst things under the sun. And as Chrysa and I have helped a lot of people understand, is if you don't plan and prepare properly, probate can be an unhealthy experience, and nursing home or assisted living can be an unhealthy experience. However, if you do the proper planning and you're prepared ahead of time, and some of the proper planning to be prepared is just simply knowing the reality, right, Chrysa? Knowing the reality that probate and nursing homes really shouldn't be that bad of an experience. And so having Chrysa on the show today to talk about from the trenches, again, from an estate planning and elder law attorney, that's really what I want to talk about today, Tony, is turning kind of the mic over to Chrysa and let her tell us about, here's the reality. Here's some of the myths, but here's the reality. And here's how her and her firm can help people through these two unfortunate circumstances of probate court and nursing homes.
Exactly. Jason, you're totally right. So a lot of times people come in with those misconceptions. For instance, that, probate court is absolutely terrible and that they've heard these stories and that no matter what, they need a trust to avoid probate. And, there are certain instances where a trust is really critically important as part of the estate plan. But the misnomer is that all probate courts are bad.
Mhm.
We live in some pretty, you know, reasonable sized counties here in
Mhm.
Michigan. And so all of our local courts are really quite user friendly. They don't overly, you hear, the myth that you hear is that it's going to take years to probate something, or that it's going to be overly expensive or overly complex. And certainly there are busy areas in the world, even down probably Wayne County,
Mhm.
Michigan,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Chicago, probably maybe Tony, where you are,
Yeah.
where you would not really want to have to deal with the probate court just because of how busy that bureaucracy is there.
Yeah.
So
It's rough here. That's for
okay,
sure.
so that's a
Yeah.
good example. But here, a will may be a good way to have, to set up your estate plan, and so that myth really wouldn't apply.
Sure.
But again, like I think everybody just getting good information, and that information is really customized for each person. Everybody has an estate. Some people say, "Oh, I don't have enough money to have an estate." Well, everybody has an estate.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of times it's just people getting good information on what they need or they don't need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I think that's part of what we really try to help between, Chris's team and my team is help people understand what do you need? And as Chrysa mentioned, it really should be tailored and custom built, whether it be an estate plan, a tax plan, a financial plan. It should be built towards you and your needs. And why I say that is because Tony, you and I talk about this on the show a lot. A
Yeah.
lot of families I've met over the years are investors. They come into me and they have certain investments. And I say, okay, well, why do you own this? Or why do you have this account? Or why have you done this? And they say, well, it's because that's what my neighbor did, or that's what my sister-in-law did, or that's what my golfing friend did. And so it's really important as good as those things or those plans probably are for those people, are they truly in your best interest? And again, from a fiduciary advisory standpoint, that's really important to me is making sure everything you own and everything you're doing is 100% custom tailored to you and in your best interest. And a lot of times I say, well, why don't you have this? Or why haven't you done this? Like maybe, Krista, maybe it's why don't you have this certain trust or this certain estate planning document? And they might say, well, because I've heard it's a bad thing. I've heard I shouldn't have that. And I said, well, I've heard a lot of things too, but if you talk to an estate planning attorney to figure out what is in the best interest of you and your family. And so that's again why, like Krista said, it's important you have something, but how do you know what to have? Because it's been custom built for you by a professional like myself or my team or Chrysa or her team. So let's talk, Chrysa, before we have to take a break here. Let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the differences in wills and trusts. And then we'll talk maybe some of the differences in different estate planning documents as a whole. And then in the next segments that we're going to shift gears and get into a little bit more about maybe Medicare and Medicaid, some of the differences there, and assisted living, nursing homes, and those types of things.
Okay, great. So just to start off, I think that a large majority of folks our age, the bulk of our savings are in retirement vehicles.
100%. Yep.
And so I think a lot of times people are really focused on a will versus a trust, and they don't even think about the fact that their IRA has beneficiary designations. So any account, and probably every account you set up,
Almost all accounts are going to have
Jason,
some
here.
form of beneficiary or pay on death or transfer on death. Yep.
So those designations are all contracts. And so those particular assets are never going to flow through a will or a trust unless you have neglected to put a beneficiary down. If you don't name any beneficiary, it would go through your estate. If you have a trust, you may or may not name it as a beneficiary. So that's a big important piece of this, that just like that, all of those things that you've already set up with a beneficiary, you can kind of just move those over to the side and realize like those are going to flow that way and they'll not be a part of anything that goes through your will or your trust. After that, if you have a house and you pass away and it's in your name alone, that's going to require a probate file be opened. Your will would be used to open the probate file, and your will would name who's your executor and who's going to do all the things with regard to your house, who has authority to sell your house, to sign a deed. So that is how a will would work. If your home was owned by your trust and you pass away, then your successor trustee has authority to sell your house without going to the probate court to get that authority. So it's just kind of a little bit of a different avenue to get to the same place.
And a lot of people do set up trusts then to avoid probate. That's one reason that I've heard for setting up a trust. But as you said, maybe probate court isn't as bad as some make it out to be. I do know it doesn't cost that much to work with somebody like yourself and have a trust created, maybe compared to, depending on your situation, what it would cost to go through probate court. Or sometimes do you see it as kind of a wash, or it depends on the situation?
Well, sometimes people are just like, well, I don't, I can either pay while I'm alive and have a trust set up, or I'll be deceased and I won't care that somebody's.
I won't worry about it, but you
right? So sometimes you're just kind of kicking the can down the road for to deal with the expense. But you're absolutely right. Like you can set up. I think people. I mean, we all have fear that like we're going to go into this attorney's office and, like they're just going to charge us unreasonable amounts of money, and like
the timer's going to start rolling, and it's
And I get that. Like I get there's like an intimidation factor. But I love when people just want to come in and learn and understand the nuances of these different things, and then understand what's best for them. And, then they kind of like Jason is saying, like you're making a step in the right direction rather than kind of letting life happen to you and reacting. So
I think that's great. We do need to take another quick break. Before the break, I want to remind listeners, if they want a copy of the book, we still have a few copies left. Be one of the next callers and mention you heard about it on the show. Call 989-835-7203. You can also set up a no-charge, no-obligation consultation with Jason and his team there. Just call 989-835-7203. And Jason, I'm sure if people have questions for Chrysa, they can also get a hold of her through you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. If any of our listeners or viewers have questions at all for myself or my team or for Chrysa, if they're estate plan or legal questions, you can feel free to ask us those questions, and I will be 100% open and honest with you and tell you I'm not an attorney. I don't have a law degree, so I don't give legal advice. I know enough about the laws to be scary and dangerous, and I know enough to hire and defer to the right individuals like Chrysa or her team. So please, by all means, if you have questions or concerns about anything you hear on today's show, or some questions or concerns you didn't hear, but you'd like to get those bounced off Chrysa or her team, please just email or call us here at the office, and we'd be happy to relay that information, those questions to Chrysa.
That sounds great. And we'll be right back with more of your Financial Empower Hour right after this. Welcome back to your Financial Empower Hour. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. I'm here with our host, the man himself, Jason Cryderman, and we're here with Chrysa Milholland, right? I'm getting the name right. Milholland, correct? Yeah. Chrysa, great to see you again and have you on the show. You've already told us a lot. People do have some misconceptions about probate. They shouldn't fear things like trusts or probate because if they work with somebody like yourself, you're very open up front. And as far as paying goes, some people think this is going to cost me so much. But it's not like you're getting in a taxi in New York City where they pull the lever down and the timer starts, the dollars start adding up when they meet with you, right?
No, that's absolutely correct. And typically with estate plans, it's a flat fee. So know going into it what you're going to get charged.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. And people don't need to worry about that. I did this with when my grandfather passed. going over his. And I just wish that he had worked with somebody like yourself beforehand, who is a little more knowledgeable on, elder care and estate planning and communication. A big part of this is how much burden do you want? You mentioned kicking the can down the road, or why would I worry about this? I'm going to be gone type of a thing. But if you have loved ones, your spouse or your children or grandchildren, you don't want to leave them in a bad situation. Most people don't want to leave them with a burden. So it's better to get this taken care of up front, and the sooner the better, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of falls into like when we talk about, again, the tagline of the book, right, is plan for the best, prepare for the worst. And I've never met anybody in my 22 years of being a fiduciary advisor that says, well, I don't care if I leave my family in a bad position. I don't care if I give them headaches and heartaches and sleepless nights and just no, that's just not how we think as human beings, right? Obviously, we want to do the best we can while we're alive. And unfortunately, if we get sick or when we pass on, truly believe we all want to make it as easy on our spouse and our children, our grandchildren, our loved ones as absolutely possible. And so doing the right planning ahead of time, whether that's financial planning, that's tax planning, and especially estate planning, whether you have the right power documents in play, power of attorney documents, whether you have a will because that's truly in your best interest, or you have some form of trust because that's truly in your best interest. If you have the proper plan and documents in play and you're working with the right professionals, those unfortunate times in your life and in your family's lives will be easier for you and your family to deal with and your loved ones. So it's very important, to have those hard conversations. And as Chrysa mentioned, don't be scared to have the conversations, especially don't be scared of the price. I think it's only fair. Fair question is, if you decide to call Chrysa or her office to schedule a meeting or any other attorney, ask right up front, am I going to be billed prorated by the minute or the half hour, or is this a flat fee? What's this going to cost me? It's important. You need to know that, but please don't let it be a roadblock or scare you, because these are some of the most important things you're going to plan for the rest of your life, for your family and your loved ones. Do not let fees be a roadblock. They can be a little speed bump that you might have to just kind of work around or get over, but I try never, even in my practice of having my fees that I have for managing money for families, please don't let fees be a roadblock to some of the most important things in your life, like your family and your loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So, Chrysa, tell us some more. Do you usually advise people do trusts to avoid probate, or does it depend?
It depends.
Sure.
There are some times that a trust is absolutely required.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have minor children, there's really no way to hold money in the probate court beyond the age of 18. And most of us don't feel that 18-year-olds have a form enough brain to handle,
Yeah.
those types of funds.
If you would have
So
given me $1 million or even $100,000 when I was 18, yeah,
you would
it,
not have it today, right?
No, you
well,
wouldn't.
I wouldn't have had it. I wouldn't have had it the next day or the next
And you
week
might
at
have had
least.
some new friends that you
A
didn't
Yeah.
lot of new
want or
friends.
need.
Yep.
I'd probably be dead in a ditch somewhere with it all gone within a few days. So yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yes, so minor children is, easy. That's an easy trust.
Sure.
Typically, if you have a child with special needs, that's a trust. If you have a child that's, a vulnerable adult, even that can't handle money, just kind of as you were reflecting on
Mhm.
yourself, that is, another need for a trust. And a lot of times, if folks own real estate in multiple states, that type of administration is very expensive. So it just makes sense to have a trust in that instance as
Mhm.
well.
Sure. Sure, that makes perfect sense. And probate court, I mean, how also it's a timing thing, right? I mean, we hear horror stories about how long it can take. So, in other words, if I pass and I know, I want my adult children to get the money after I'm gone, or my spouse, uh, how long does it take? Of course, spouse, usually it's more direct, but how long does it take usually to go through probate court? I mean, if you have to go through probate, doesn't it take a lot longer?
The trust administration versus an estate administration aren't necessarily any different time-wise.
Hmm,
It kind of has a lot to do with who you put in charge.
sure.
Sometimes people are a little bit more attentive to their role as executor or as trustee, and they get things done in a
Mhm.
more reasonable fashion. But y- a probate's going to be at least 5 months. You can count
Mm,
on that. Um,
wow.
at least 5 months. And really, a trust administration should take at least that long as
Mhm.
well. And then if there's real estate and things like that involved, that can, depending on what the market's like, it can
Mhm.
really slow things down.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, if you have to sell real estate to get the money out of it for your
Mhm.
loved ones, yeah, that's a good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Even with a transfer on death, that just means it's in their name. It doesn't mean it's sold and you have the cash from it, right? Yeah. That's,
Correct. I mean, if
yeah.
you do some type of ladybird deed
Mhm.
to get a home to a
Sure.
beneficiary, they're gonna take on the everything in their own name at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, makes perfect sense. So, um, uh, we haven't really touched on long-term care yet, or nursing homes, and that's another myth. There are a lot of myths, right, Jason, about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and Krista probably knows more than me, but we'll talk about, we're going to get into really right now. Let's jump to that kind of arena of your plan, right? Is golly, what happens to me, my spouse, or a state if one of us gets sick and we need to go into a nursing home or assisted living? What can happen? Because I've heard that the nursing home comes after all your money, Chris. I've heard they take your last pair of socks and they kick you out on the street, and it's just the nursing homes are the worst thing since and that's not really true. Those are some of those misconceptions, some of those bad rumors. That the reality is it the best situation to be in? Well, no, definitely not when your health goes south. But again, planning properly ahead of time, being prepared helps ease that transition. And Tony, you're going through this personally with your mom and dad, so
Yep.
you relate to this just right down to the heart, right? So, Krista, let's kind of jump right into that, and talk about what are some of the misconceptions, the myths, the bad rumors, whatever that might be out there about nursing homes. And then let's really ease our listeners and viewers today about the reality, what they can do and how things can be better than what they think.
So I think the biggest myth that is kind of the one you touched on, that if somebody needs a high level of care and has to go into a nursing home, that the state is going to take their house and they're going to take all of their money.
Correct.
So when we talk about nursing homes, they are businesses and they're quite expensive. We know how expensive it is to live at home, and living somewhere and getting around the clock care is incredibly expensive.
Mhm.
In the state of Michigan, the average cost of a nursing home is $11,000 a month. So
Wow.
most of us don't have income of $11,000 a month
Mhm.
to
Right.
to just stream out, and pay
Right.
for that care. So when we talk about nursing home care, a lot of times we're assuming that the individual is going to apply for some assistance from the state to help pay
Mhm.
for their nursing home care, which is the Medicaid program. And so there are a lot of planning strategies for folks that need Medicaid. Sometimes people have saved enough where they're really kind of self insured.
Mhm.
And I always tell people, like, saving gives you options.
Absolutely.
If you can save, you can definitely determine your destiny a lot better with assets than
Yep.
without. But
Mhm.
there are programs in place to help, because again, the care is so expensive and it's a lot of times so necessary. But married planning, a married couple where one of the spouses gets sick is very different than a single person plan.
Mhm.
And our strategy is always to help folks get the care they need, but to keep their assets
Mhm.
that they've worked so hard
Absolutely.
to
Yep. Mhm.
save. So there is estate recovery in the state of Michigan, which means that when you pass away, they do keep track of all the money that they pay for you on the Medicaid program when you're
Mhm.
in a long-term care facility. They kind of have this, like you were just talking about the taxi meter. They do have the
Mhm.
long-term care meter
Yep.
running,
Yeah.
and they do keep track. And then when you pass away, if you have a probate, the state of Michigan will file a claim to get paid back. So a part of the strategies too are at that point avoiding probate for those
Mhm.
folks, so that 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 debt, there's nowhere for the state of Michigan to make that claim to.
Yeah, I think that's important. I don't know what the laws over there are in Minnesota, but that's important for my listeners and viewers that Chrysa just pointed out is Michigan, and I don't know how long ago that law passed, but Michigan didn't used to have an estate recovery. Now they do.
2010.
Yeah,
2010. Okay.
Minnesota does.
Okay.
And my mom is on Medicaid right now because her care is $11,000 a month.
Yep.
She has Parkinson's. So,
Okay.
and my dad owns the farm. He inherited it from my grandfather. So we've been working hard to try to figure out ways. That family farm has been in our family forever since it was
Mhm.
homesteaded in 1855. But the state can go after it, put a lien on it, and then that would force us to sell it to pay the state back. So we're trying to avoid that, but I don't know if we'll be able to. But
Mhm.
yeah, it is sad. I mean, Medicare doesn't cover long-term care. Medicaid does, but it's
Correct.
not free. They can
That's
come
not
back.
free. And like what Chrysa mentioned, there's a lot of different like strategies and tactics and techniques and
Sure.
tools and vehicles, whether it be long-term care insurance or a life insurance with cash value, long-term care accessibility, or in some form of annuity that has a long-term care rider. There are
Like a
different
hybrid
tools.
policy.
Yeah, like hybrid policies. I mean, those are available and out there. They're right for some people, and they're absolutely not right for everybody.
Right.
So again, finding out what position you're in and what is in your family's best interest, working with the right professionals is the only best way to do it, Tony.
Yep. And we're going to take a quick break and be right back to wrap things up. Welcome back to your Financial Empower Hour. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. I am here with Jason Cryderman and Chrysa. Chrysa, great show so far today. You've brought a lot of great information regarding estate planning, regarding probate court and long-term care. And if our listeners have questions, how can they get a hold of Chrysa?
So they can always call me here at the office. Our number is 989-835-7203. They can get on our website, which is GreatLakesInvestmentAdvisors.com. Either way, reach out to us. Let us know. We'd be happy to get you in direct contact with Chrysa, her office, or another member of her team. We can get emails back and forth. We can set up phone calls. We can even set up office visits, whether it's here in my office for Chrysa to come sit in or at her office. Her office is here in Midland as well. So by all means, if there's any questions or concerns that you've heard about on today's show and you'd like to ask Chrysa some more questions or learn more, or if there's something you didn't hear on today's show and you'd like to learn more, ask Chrysa questions, please just reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to get you connected with Chrysa directly.
All right. Well, Chrysa, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I mean, do you deal with this a lot? Do you deal with people trying to set up ways to protect their family when they're dealing with long-term care costs?
Every day. Yes. And I think a lot of it is just getting good information, like understanding, because there's a lot of fear about it. I
Yep.
think people sometimes just have paralysis by analysis, and they
Yep.
just get they don't reach out for help or just information. And a lot of times I'll meet with a family and it's not even what they think it's going to be. I just kind of give them the information and the facts of how it all works, and then they can go back to their family and plan accordingly for their loved ones.
Yeah. I think that's great. Well, Jason, this has been a great show, and it really does tie into what you do there as well. And I know that's why you work so closely alongside both tax professionals and legal professionals like Chrysa, and you and Chrysa work together to help your clients come up with plans and make sure they're prepared. You don't want to leave your spouse or your loved ones in a bad situation, right?
No, that's so true, Tony. And we talk about it all the time on our show here. It's in almost every single chapter of the book is work with the appropriate professionals in your lives that are trained and licensed and that you trust for each of those aspects and segments of your life. I really talk to a lot of my clients that I manage money for. And I say, look, we can do all the right things with this money. We can earn you the best returns possible. We can protect you from as much of the downturns as possible. But if we don't do the right things legally and we lose some of those dollars taken away from your family, maybe because we weren't planned for the right probate cases, or we weren't planned properly for going into a nursing home or something like that, or we don't plan properly tax wise, and at the end the IRS takes back 30 to 50% of that money,
Right.
What good was it all for? Right. So
Right.
having a team, I truly believe having a team of professionals on your side, plan for the best and prepare for the worst in each aspect. And I think it's also very important that your teams talk to each other. So for example, having Chrysa right here in my office and right here in town and being to engage with her on all of the families that we serve together is very beneficial to those families. We've met, I know I have, Chris, and you probably have as well. We meet a lot of people that say, okay, well, has your estate planning attorney ever talked to your CPA or ever talked to your financial advisor? Oh, no, none of them know each other. Oh, no, they don't. They would never want. Why not?
Yeah.
Your teams need to be they need to be on the same page, because what the right hand's doing, the left hand needs to be aware of that to make sure we're all working together. So have a plan, have a team you can trust, and make sure you work together. I think it's very huge. Now, before we wrap up the show today, Tony, I do want you to give away a few more copies of the book. When we were on our last break, I got a call from another professional here in town, happens to be related to the professional I have standing next to me in my studio today. So Mr. Paul Milholland called, and he said he would pay for all the books given away on today's show. So,
Paul
Milholland, who is a professional here at a local golf course, he's going to pay for all the books today. So very generous of you, Paul.
Paul,
thank
thanks
you for your help today. So, no, that's a joke. That's a joke, Paul. But go ahead, Tony, and go ahead and give away a few more copies of the books for our listeners today, please.
Yeah. Empower Your Retirement. Get a copy of Jason's book. Just call 989-835-7203. That's 989-835-7203. And that does it for today's episode of Your Financial Empower Hour with our host, Jason Cryderman, and our guest, estate planning attorney, Chrysa Milholland.